Hi, so this session is drawing a linear graph using the x and y intercept method. And before we do this, we have to just cover some important facts, and that is, if I just draw a quick graph, and if we have a straight line, just say, here's our straight line, we know a straight line can have two intercepts, the y-intercept and the x-intercept. Okay, it can't have any more than two. We know sometimes it can have one, where it's passing only through the x-axis, and that's an undefined gradient. And we can also have one passing just through the y-axis, and that's our zero gradient. Okay, oh, that's x. But it is possible to have two x-intercepts. So when we have linear equations with one intercept, they're pretty straightforward to graph. For example, if x was just say -4 here, then the equation will just be x is equal to -4. X can't be anything else but -4. And for this one, if y was just say that point there was 2, the equation for this, y would just equal 2. So these equations are a bit different, and I guess you can say special, and that is they're pretty easy to draw. Y is only 2, so oops, sorry, it just goes straight across. X is -4, it can only be -4, so it's a vertical line. And that's it with those ones. So it's these linear equations that give us a gradient that is not zero or undefined, and therefore we can have two intercepts. Now, we need to remember that at this point here, the x-intercept, so if we have the x-intercept, okay, we know y is 0. So at that point right there, y has to be 0. And then for the y-intercept, so for our y-intercept, we can see that if we go down to the origin, the x value is 0. So x has to equal 0. And we have to remember these important points because we'll be using this knowledge to now draw a straight line by finding these 2 points. And remember, when x is 0, okay, it gives us our y-intercept, and when y is 0, it gives us our x-intercept. Now, with this method, we don't actually have to have the equation in the form of y equals mx plus c. We know in this form, okay, we can see our gradient and we can see the y-intercept. So if it's in this form, straight away you have found the y-intercept, because using this method, remember, we have to find the y-intercept and also the x-intercept and plot these 2 points. So for our first one, I can see it's in the form of y equals mx plus c. There's my gradient, it's a negative gradient, and there's my y-intercept, -12. Now with equation 2, you notice that it is not in the form of y equals mx plus c. Now you can actually rearrange this into that form, and for this one it's not that hard. All we're going to do is bring the 2x to this side, so we're minus 2x and minus 2x. So we end up with y equals minus 2x, we can write first, and then plus 6. So our gradients first. And there's our y-intercept. It's a positive 6. But you don't actually have to rearrange it if you don't want to. But this is a skill you have to know, and we'll do a later lesson on practicing rearranging it. But let's work on our first one. I'll just make some more room. Now, to do this, you basically, you can start off by saying when x equals 0, okay, what is our y-intercept? Now, we know, we can see it's -12, but let's just make sure we get -12. So when x is 0, we make x equals 0 into the equation. So we have y equals -3 times 0. X is now 0, and we know there's a times there, -12. -3 times 0 is just 0, so we have 0 minus 12, so y will equal -12. Okay, and that's why C is always the y-intercept, because whenever x is 0, you're left with whatever you have here. Okay, now that is the first point we have found. So if we had to do a quick sketch so far, this is what we've found, a y and x-axis. So if y is equal to -12, I'll do a bit longer. Imagine -12 is just down there. There's one point. The line is passing through that point. Okay, when y is negative 12, x is 0. So it has to be on the y-axis. Now, the other thing to look at is, because it's in the form of y equals mx plus c, we can actually see the gradient. And the gradient is a negative 3. Or it's a negative, which means it's going down the hill. So if I had to do a quick sketch, it'll be something like that. Now, I haven't found my x-intercept yet, but I can see my x-intercept has to be a negative value, because if the y-intercept is negative 12 and we have a negative gradient, look what's happening. It's going down the hill, passing through negative 12, our y-intercept. So therefore, the x-intercept has to be a negative value. So let's see what it is. So now we say we found the y-intercept when x is 0. So now let's find the x-intercept when y is equal to 0. Okay, so y is equal to 0. Now we make y equals 0. So we have 0 equals minus 3x minus 12. Okay, and now all we have to do is solve for x using your solving equation skills. If you don't like to have x on this side, we can just rewrite it like this. Minus 3x minus 12, same thing, equals 0. And we just solve for x. So we've got minus 12, so we're plus 12 on both sides. So we have minus 3x equals a positive 12. And our last step is to simply divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3 and divide by negative 3. So x will equal, well, 12 divided by 3 is 4, and it's negative. A positive and a negative make a negative. So x is negative 4. And we have found the x-intercept. And to write this as a point, okay, it's saying when x is negative 4, y is 0. And there it is. So this point here, we can say x is negative 4. And that's it. And when a question says to sketch, it's asking you to just show the 2 points in this case we have found. You don't have to draw a scale. I mean, you can if you want to, but the key word here is sketch is saying just sketch it. Find the 2 points it's asking you to do, and that's it. So in this case, of course, use a ruler, but that's fine. But if you want to draw a scale, then that's no problem as well. And this point down here, it was when x is 0 and y is negative 12. So it's important to show the points we found on your graph, just like this. So x is negative 4, y is 0. Just saying that point there, understanding what you found. And of course, we can see negative 4 here and negative 12 there. Let's try another question. Now, if you remember with our second question, this is not in the form of y equals mx plus c, and I can't see my y-intercept. We did rearrange it by bringing the 2x to this side, so we ended up with y equals minus 2x, and then it's a positive 6 still. And we put the minus 2x first because we know that the equation's in the form of y equals mx plus c. And there's our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is positive 6. Because when x is 0, we'll have minus 2 times 0, and we're left with a positive 6. So we found the first step, okay? So when x is 0, y is positive 6. Okay, now, because I've rearranged it, we can see our gradient for this one is also negative, okay? So it's going down the hill. But I'm going to work with this equation. So imagine I didn't rearrange it, and I want to find my y-intercept. So when x equals 0, we're going to replace x for 0 here, and let's see what our y-intercept is. Now, I know we've already found our y-intercept, but we are just making sure we can still use this equation. So when x is 0, we've got 2 times 0 plus y equals 6. Well, 2 times 0 is 0, and we're left with y equals 6. And see how it's our y-intercept still? So we didn't have to rearrange it. We can still find our y-intercept just by making x equals 0. Okay, now let's find the other intercept. So let's find the x-intercept. To find the x-intercept, we know we now have to make y equals 0. So to find the x-intercept, it's when y equals 0. And we're left with, using this equation up here, we've got 2x plus 0 equals 6. It's pretty easy to solve now. So we've got 2x equals 6. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and we've got x equals 3. And we have found our x-intercepts. So when x is 3, y is 0. We have our 2 points. These are our 2 points we have to draw on our graph, and that's it. So let's just sketch it over here. So imagine I'm using a ruler and label our axes, y and x. Okay, so when x is 0, y is positive 6. So there's, imagine positive 6 is there. There we go. And that's a point from on the line touching the y-axis. And now when x is positive 3, so positive 3, y is 0. So that's our next point, right on the x-axis. We have found our 2 intercepts, the y-intercept when x is 0, the x-intercept when y is 0. And now just get your ruler and draw your line through those 2 points, and you're done. We can see it's going down the hill. It's a negative gradient when we rearranged it, so we've done the right thing. So it is important, if you have time, to rearrange your equation into this form here, just so you can have a look and see you've done the right thing. Negative gradient down the hill, and you can clearly see your y-intercept. But you don't have to. Okay, let's try this linear equation here. Imagine we had 10x plus 30y equals negative 150. Now this is a linear equation. X and y are to the power of a positive 1. But we can see it is not in the form of y equals mx plus c. Okay, and to find the x and y intercepts, you don't have to rearrange it. But I'm going to rearrange it so we can start practicing that skill. And to get it in this form, we basically have to have y equals everything else. So the 30y can stay here for now. Our first thing to go is this positive 10x. Opposite of plus a positive 10x is to minus 10x. This will cancel out and become 0. And of course, we have minus 10x on this side. So we're left with 30y equals, so that's gone from this side, and we've got minus 150, that was already here, minus 10x. Okay, and y is still not on its own. The last step is to divide by 30 to get rid of the 30, but make sure on this side here everything is divided by 30. You can do it separately like this, so divide by 30 and divide by 30. That 150 or negative 150 is separated by 10x by subtraction. Because they're two different things, they both get a turn to be divided by 30. It's extremely important. So y equals, it's still going to be a negative, 150 divided by 30. Well, we can cancel off the zeros, and 15 divided by 3 is simply 5. Now this is a negative here as well. So negative and a positive down here make a negative, so minus. And now we have 10x over 30. So we can simplify the 10 and 30. The x will just stay there. So cancel a 0 and we end up with x over 3. That 1 there, okay, we know there's a 1 there. It's still saying 1 over 3. It's just invisible. Okay? And now we want it in the form of y equals mx plus c. So we're going to put the minus x over 3 first. So y equals minus x over 3 and then minus 5. We haven't changed anything. We just wrote this bit first and that bit second. And that's it. And if you wanted to write it like this, you can. Y equals a negative third x and then minus 5. See how we have over here x over 3, and here we've got 1 over 3 and then the x in the middle. This is saying the exact same thing. The reason why most linear equations in the form of y equals mx plus c show the fraction part and have the x in the middle is because we can see our rise and our run. But this here is exactly the same thing. We know the 1 is invisible. So it's your choice what you want to, how you want to write it. But just remember, don't get confused. It's actually saying the same thing. Okay. Now we can see our y-intercept is negative 5. There it is. All right, but remember, we didn't have to rearrange this, but I just showed you so we can start practicing. All right, so now let's find the x-intercept. Before we find the x-intercept, let's just make sure our y-intercept, we got, before when we rearrange it, our y-intercept, I'll just write it here, y-intercept, didn't come out right, was negative 5. Okay, let's just see if we make x equals 0 here, that we get the same thing. So to find the y-intercept, that's our first one we're doing. Okay, it's when x equals 0. So to show clear working out, you write down, I guess, what you're finding. In this case, the y-intercept when x equals 0. So when x is 0 in our equation, we have 10 times 0, which is going to give us 0, plus 30y to equal negative 150. So we can see this is gone. So we're left with 30y equals a negative 150. Well, our last step is to divide by 30. Divide by 30 cancels out. So y equals 150 divided by 30. We know it gave us, well, 15 divided by 3, a negative 5. Okay, so you can see how if you didn't rearrange it, you still get the same y-intercept when x is equal to 0. So that's our first point we have found. When x is 0, y is negative 5. Okay, and we know how to plot that point. Now let's find our x-intercept. To find our x-intercept, so let's do our heading. We're finding the x-intercept. It's when y equals 0. So make y equals 0, we have 10x plus 30 times y, I'll write it like this for this time, equals negative 150. And we can see 30 times 0 cancels out, so we end up having 10x equals negative 150. Last step, we can solve this. Divide by 10 and divide by 10. That cancels out. So x equals is going to be a negative. So negative, because a negative and a positive make a negative. Cancel our zeros. We're left with 15 over 1, or just 15. And there we have it. Our x-intercept is negative 15 when y is equal to 0. There's our 2 points now that we simply have to draw in our graph and draw our straight line. So I'll just draw the graph over here. We can change the color. All right, so y-axis, x-axis, label your axes. All right, so it tells us the first one, when x is 0, so when x is 0 will be on our y-axis, y is negative 5. So imagine negative 5 is just down here. There's one point where the line's passing through. The other point where the line's passing through is when x is negative 15 and y is 0. So imagine negative 15 is all the way over here on my x-axis. Y is 0, which means it has to be right on the x-axis. And now we simply draw our line. And our line will be going down. Now, I haven't got a ruler, so I'll do my best. Through those 2 points. Make sure it passes through those 2 intercepts that we have found. Okay? And you could also write these points like this. Negative 15 is x and y is 0 at that point. And at this point, x is 0 and y is negative 5. And that's it. So all you have to do using this method to draw a straight line on a graph is to simply find your y-intercept. And remember, the y-intercept is where the line crosses through the y-axis. And at that point, x is 0. So at that point, we know x has to be equal to 0. And, and of course, to find the x-intercept, at this point, we know y has to equal 0. Okay, so in knowing those points, we make y equal 0, make x equal 0, sub them in, and we're done. And of course, we don't have to rearrange it into the form of y equals mx plus c, but that is a skill you should know. Thank you.